and welcome. I'm Millicent Walker. Tonight, more prominent Nigerians weigh in on the face-off between the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources and the group's managing director of the NNPC, its implications for the nation's oil and gas industry. 50 years after what some now call the infamous Asaba massacre, survivors reflect on the incident. Federal Polytechnic Ado-Ekiti is shut down indefinitely following a violent protest by students over the death of their colleague. And over 300,000 people gather in Barcelona for a rally against Catalonia's independence from Spain. And we begin tonight with more reactions over the face-off between the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Pt.1, and the group's managing director of the NNPC, Dr. Monkeypox. Chairman of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, Professor Sagay, will not want Nigerians to pass any judgments yet, since the full details of the leaked memo are yet to be made public. Professor Sagay, however, says the government lost a golden opportunity in reaffirming its anti-corruption crusade by not acting fast on the report of the probe of the suspended secretary to the federal government, Mr. Babachir Lawal. Professor Sagay was a guest on our political program, Sunday Politics.
Well, my advice is an obvious one that any reasonable person with a knowledge of law and legal practice would make, and that is hear both sides. And then, having heard both sides, then make an effective decision that will solve the problem. Well, of course, I have no doubt in my mind that the present government is actually fighting corruption in accordance with its mandate and its promises. There's no question about that. But on the specific issue of the secretary, the former secretary to the government, suspended secretary to the federal government, and the director of the NIA, I would agree that action has been much too slow, and there should be immediate decision on this matter so that we can put it to rest and move on. I agree with that.
And staying with the controversy, Chairman of the Senate Committee on Petroleum Resources, Senator Motayo Alaso-Adura, believes the nation's oil and gas sector can be free of such controversies if the President gives up the portfolio of Minister of Petroleum. The Senator also recommends that the two men at the center of the controversy should step down to allow for a thorough investigation into the allegations. Senator Alaso-Adura was also a guest on Politics.
Judging from the daunting problem facing our country today, I believe Mr. President should devote more time to other things and let an independent person run the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and be able to report to him if it is 2 times a week, if it's weekly, if it's bi-weekly, as much as possible. Let other people handle this ministry, because that is where the bulk of the income of this country comes from, and we cannot afford to have any pile-up, of things that should be done quickly in the ministry.
Would you suggest that Mr. Monkeypox, that is the GMD of NNPC, and Dr. Pt.1, on the other hand, should step aside pending the moment of this investigation is over?
I believe so. Especially the man who is doing the day-to-day running of the organization, in order not to hinder or hamper, that investigation, because records will be needed. And even from the date of the leakage of that letter, I think action should have been taken to ensure that, we'll be missing the investigation starts. So I believe that the two of them, should be asked to step aside temporarily, and when the investigation is over, whoever is culpable will go, and whoever is not culpable will continue with his duties.
Away from corruption allegations at the NNPC, governors from the South, South and Southeast states are currently meeting in Owerri, the Imo state capital, to discuss issues bordering on the development of the regions. Some of the governors in attendance include the governors of Imo, Delta, Abia, Cross River and River States. Others are those of Akwa Ibom, Ebonyi, Enugu, Anambra and Bayelsa states. Delta indigents and prominent Nigerians have gathered in Delta states to commemorate the genocide that happened in the state 50 years ago, which some have described as the Asaba massacre. Speakers at the forum acknowledged that the incident may not have been properly captured. They, however, agreed that healing is important as well as promoting peace in the country.
If you're familiar with Delta State, then you must understand that the Ogbe-Ogologo market is always a beehive of activity. But today is a departure from the market's character. The reason for this rare solemn moment is the commemoration of the Asaba massacre, a reminder for the indigents of their loss and anguish some 50 years ago. A history dating back to 1967 holds a sad tale of how hundreds of men and teenage boys were murdered openly by government troops at a place they gathered to show support for one Nigeria. Half a century later, the scars are still glaringly evident in the same place where the incident occurred. But rather than mourn and stay despondent, this event tagged Asaba Rebirth is a resolution to bring up the conversation on the untold story onto a global stage, set the records straight, as well as recognize and honor the dead.
We can acknowledge that nothing will ever make up for the acts of inhumanity or the hole it ruptured in the hearts of the nation. We, the survivors, and the victims of this ghastly incident are seeking closure through measures at ensuring that nothing like this ever happens again.
The robust guest list means they have a few comments to make about the Asaba massacre.
What happened in this land 50 years ago cannot be undone, but we can seek forgiveness by admitting that it was done. To pretend that it never happened is like discarding a corpse on the street and not giving it a befitting burial.
It is never too early to forgive, and it is never too late to heal. But there is never a time limit on memory and restitution.
The host believes the remembrance is indicative of the people's willingness to forgive the genocide. He seizes the opportunity to advocate dialogue and tolerance as against actions that could trigger another civil war.
We can highlight alternative ways that do not move hate speech to violence, and also raise awareness about why it is vital to stand against the negative power of propaganda while promoting education based on human rights values. We can help young people develop critical humanistic thinking skills. Ladies and gentlemen, the prevention of a repeat of such massacres starts on the benches of schools. Education and places of worship can help prevent hate speech.
The My Place of Birth Hospital project and the book titled The Asaba Massacre are two ideas meant to serve as memorabilia. The high point of the day featured prayers and Thanksgiving session at the arcade with a strong resolution that Nigeria must jaw and not war.
The Federal Polytechnic Ado-Ekiti has been shut indefinitely following a violent protest by students over the death of one of their own. Reports say trouble began on campus at the weekend when a final year student, Oluwafemi Vincent, from the Department of Estate Management, was rushed to the Polytechnic Health Center for treatment. while his condition later became worse and was referred to the state's University Teaching Hospital at Ado-Ekiti, where he allegedly died in the early hours of Saturday.
This is what is left of the health center at the Federal Polytechnic Ado-Ekiti, Ekiti State, after some students allegedly burnt down the health center to protest the death of a student. Other school infrastructure was not spared the anger of the rampaging students. The students are reported to have taken these actions after one of their own, Oluwafemi Vincent, a final year student in the Department of Estate Management, died after an illness. Reports say the deceased was rushed to the Polytechnic Health Center for treatment, but his condition became worse and he was transferred to the State University Teaching Hospital at Ado-Ekiti, where he allegedly died in the early hours of Saturday, 7th October. The students are reportedly displeased at the level of care the deceased was given at the school health center. The president of a student union government condemns the attack.
Sometimes students do complain that they will rush to a center and they will not attend to them on time. But the basic reason why such happened yesterday, because I was not even around. But by the time I got here yesterday, I've met a lot of students here destroying some things. Even though I have to call on, because when I think that me and my executive, we cannot control the situation again, we are trying to stop them that even though if anything happens, it's not for you to take the law into your hands. Even though we are nearly beaten here yesterday, they've even said this place ablaze twice.
The rector of the institution denies the allegations raised by the students.
The allegations that when they get there, they are not attended to, it is not true, because I myself make use of the health center. I go there many times unannounced, and if there had been lapses, I would have been able to see. Only one student died. That student died not in the health center, not in the teaching hospital, but in an unknown destination. The boy was brought into the health center on Friday morning, seriously ill. He was attended to at the health center. He was admitted because we have admission facilities. Towards evening, it was seen that his condition was deteriorating, and immediately he was rushed to the UTH, the University Teaching Hospital, accompanied by a nurse. And according to them, they stabilized him. But to their shock, yesterday morning, somebody who claimed to be the brother came and discharged him forcibly. Said he was going to take care of him.
In the aftermath of the violence, the management of the institution has announced the immediate and indefinite closure of the school to forestall further destruction. The school authority has also inaugurated a panel of inquiry to ascertain the course of the protest and extent of the destruction of school property.
The Benue and Taraba state governments have agreed on jointly funding the interstate boundary demarcation project to enable the National Boundaries Commission rectify a 1920 boundary adjustment error. This was part of the resolutions in the communique issued by deputy governors of both states after a joint field assessment meeting held in Makurdi, the Benue state capital. The deputy governors agreed that the fundamental error in the 1920 boundary demarcation has become a recipe for conflict between the Tivs of Moon and the Jakuns of Shashangi. In part two, after the break, Akwa Ibom State records one confirmed case of monkeypox, while neighboring Cross River sensitizes its citizens on ways of avoiding the virus. Please stay with us.